Welcome to the CPTM Smart Partners Hub. Today is 19th of February, so it's Friday. As usual, we are surrounded by quite a number of dynamic changes, and we were trying to see if we could pick one of it, and one that is a bit more connected to the CPTM Inclusive Initiative, and in particularly led by or within the Inclusive Initiative related to quality and standards. So today, as usual, David Bell, from British Standard Institute, together with Scott, who is not here, and of course Alan Bryden, who is also not here, was very smart in trying to introduce personally the Smart Working Code of Practice, which was actually launched in the British government, in the Cabinet Office in UK in January, and which in fact is very much connected with quite a number of parallel discussions and interests of our group, be them Chief Executive of Bureau of Standards, be them Chief Cabinet Secretaries, be them Ministers in Prime Minister or President's Office, or be them Science Advisors, or as Jerry Roberts, Professor Jerry Roberts, one of our founding members, preoccupied with quality of organization of science technology, and like many others, were very interested about this new standard. So, as we know, we had right from the beginning in the group a preoccupation with establishing a code of ethics, code of practice among the smart partners and among the CPTM members, and among the various groups that we have, that they are government, public-private sector, networking professionals, or within the countries between various links, the 29ers, the cabinet secretaries, the civil service, the labor, the business people, the informal settlements, and so on. So the idea of smart working is probably a preoccupation for anybody who is working, and the working itself has a slightly different connotation in each place. But that being said, I think in my view, personal view, the Smart Working Code of Practice just launched will have a very big impact, and as we were discussing, waves resonate with many people's interests and concerns. So, David, why don't we kind of try to see how you would introduce Andy, okay. And probably Andy yourself, you're very welcome, and to the hub, and probably tell us a little bit about yourself besides the Smart Working Code, please.
Well, thank you, Mihaela.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. BSI produces so many standards every year. I think it's about 2,500 a year at last count, but we haven't had many that have had quite the resonance that this latest standard has.
Yeah, understood was almost viral.
Almost viral.
Yes, almost viral, whatever that is.
Whatever that is. And it's really down to the quality of the inputs. As always with standardization, the standard is only as good as the inputs. The output is only as good as the inputs, as it is in so many things. Mm-hmm. And with this standard, we've got a lot of expertise in around the table to help to develop it, and most of all Andy Lake, who's here to join us on the webcast, who is an expert in smart working. And Andy, I suggest that you probably give a little background on yourself and then the work. But for BSI, this is a real breakthrough standard, not least because we're going to follow it ourselves, because we're about to go through a refurbishment of our building. We will be moving to some of the smart working principles which you find in this standard. So Andy, perhaps you could introduce the document, tell us about your work.
Okay.
Right. Well, I've been working in this field for more than 20 years, actually, around flexible working and writing and researching. A company called flexibility.co.uk brings it all together. And I run a network called the Smart Work Network, which is for organisations that are implementing these kinds of changes. Sometimes it's called smart working, sometimes flexible working, sometimes agile working, or better ways of working, dynamic work, all kinds of things. And
is this smart partnership working?
Yeah,
Almost, right?
Yeah.
Almost.
And so what we tried to do is, in a series of publications which caught the attention of the Cabinet Office, try to bring together what's the emerging good practice in what's a very interdisciplinary field, because it involves changes to the workplace, how they're designed, changes to the technologies, which we can work anywhere pretty much these days, and changes in business processes, or the kind of electronic service delivery and the lean systems thinking and streamlining of processes behind that. The ability to be able to work more virtually, but not necessarily entirely virtually. But I think more than anything else, it's the people side, the changing behaviours, it's the culture that using these kind of techniques can bring about. So to become much less kind of individually focused, having piles of paper, working through things, much more collaborative types of working, much less of a meetings culture, but rather have flexible collaboration, and people having more autonomy and more choice about where they do their work, treating people as mature individuals, adults who can do their work, rather than people to be dragooned in a factory-style office in rows and rows of desks, or in little cellular offices or cubicles. But having much more interesting workplaces that inspire people when they come together, but allowing people to make those choices about where they work. And so this document covers all that kind of thing, and how to implement it. Aspects of healthy workplace, good acoustics, good ergonomics, and also a very strong leadership piece in here as well.
Yeah,
that it's these leaders who need to take this forward and role model the changes. And it has, I'm sure we'll be discussing lots of implications for how people work, how people are recruited, gender balance, all these kinds of things.
And how they are managed as well, I guess.
Indeed,
I mean, is the biggest culture change, do you think, in management of an organisation, or is it in how we work as individuals?
I think it does involve a very big change in management. People who implement it say that often the most resistance is at the kind of line manager, sort of lower middle management kind of level, because people often got in that position by being experts in what they do, rather than necessarily being experts in managing people, or managing by output. So they like to see people in front of them, and the traditional way we've how of getting people together is basically to come in at a certain time, so very much time-based inputs rather than output and results-based management. So that's a very big shift. But I think it's also quite a big shift for a lot of people in teams as well, because for them to think of their own work in that way can also be a bit of a culture change.
Yeah.
But the smart work is obviously very much based on the fact that the collaboration induces networks.
Yes.
And the networks cannot be managed. They almost kind of try to manage a network, and you'll be out straight away, because you can't manage it. You can catalyze it, you can whatever. So this smart working, for me, this standard enhances the ability of networks to organize themselves.
I think that's very
and
much
that is essential for collaboration.
Well, one of the reasons why organisations often introduce it, I mean, there are sort of savings which often motivate people in but it's very much to try and make people more interactive, more productive, get people out of their silos and start getting those networks within organisations, between organisations. So there's very much a trend to organise things in terms of projects and getting people together for a short amount of time to do something specific, and then disperse, come together in other teams. So to be able to facilitate those kind of changes as well.
Do you think that the smart thinking, meaning is a work, but in fact the networks are very much based on exchanging or building up an intellectual equity of a kind? Yeah. So this joint thinking, because I'm getting to the dialogue. The reason why we're getting that, because we are very preoccupied continuously of trying to get away from silos of all kinds, hierarchical or otherwise. So suddenly we found ourselves in designing without realizing, based on the way people reacted, this smart partnership dialogue mode, where you don't have somebody in front, you have a middle table, and you have all the other tables. You break any potential thinking barriers, between a head of government and a minister or a private sector or somebody from Africa or somebody from wherever it is, wherever else, the other part of the world. So the dialogue, the dialogue tent, the smart partnership dialogue tent, as we design it, but we didn't sit down, and unfortunately we didn't have a code, and probably we could do that. As I said, we should formalize that, because we've seen it works, and it's magic what's taking place. Now we don't quite know how to. You require some particular features to be not made a standard, but to be made a rule that unless you do this or you do that, you won't achieve. Never mind if you put people in, you put tables in this way or that way.
Yes.
Yeah, because so the smart working is attached to the physical. Now we didn't have that code. What do you think about smart thinking and
I think it creates
the way
all
physically
all kinds of new possibilities for work between different organisations, across organisations, which of course is something very relevant for government. When you think about what's involved. I mean, one of the pioneers now is the Ministry of Justice, which has been, in the past, so they would say themselves, quite slow to move away from paper-based processes and traditional ways of working, but they're developing very kind of smart ways of working, the way they organise their property here in London, with commuter hubs that people can go to rather than travel, and how they interact with all the agencies that they need to talk to across the country, the courts. There's all the things to do with the local government and child protection, all these things which interact. And how do you get these people working effectively together? It's always been quite a barrier,
I mean, it's a barrier. The construction industry, the building industry, has to pick that up, because, for instance, when we went to Dar es Salaam, about a year before, His Excellency President Kikwete asked us to go and look at a chantier. There was still the building up of a conference center in Dar es Salaam. And when he said, well, very proud that our dialogue will launch the center, we all said no. Because when you say conference center, is anathema to this sort of interaction. So then he realized we were a little bit, he said, I know, it's not a tent. Well, go there now, and they will be, as engineers, able to adapt a little bit that huge conference room. Well, we did go, and there were actually, there were some Chinese engineers, about 89 of them, we'll never forget that. And they were ready to kind of, we'll put chairs, this, that. But in fact, the formality and the kind of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and everybody else, they didn't dare to say, we want this, because they didn't know, they didn't have something to say why, except that we said so.
Yeah, so is that the benefit of this standard, that essentially this is about designing your workspace for the work that you're doing?
Workspace, meeting place, to be conducive to diplomacy and to kind of products.
Yeah, I think one of the other sort of things underlying it is a lot of organisations seem to be looking at changing the way they work, sort of with a standard of around about 2002. There's a few little tweaks.
Yes.
But actually, if we think 10 years ahead, the technologies that we have are going to go on changing and create more possibilities. At the moment, people tend to think, we need to do certain things face-to-face, which is absolutely true, but by that they mean physically face-to-face. So we're going to get more and more immersive virtual forms of interacting, and a lot of the sort of young people, well, not exclusively so, are much more at home and working in a more virtual way. And so let's think 10 years ahead, and how will we actually be working with the new, much more immersive forms of virtual communication. What difference will that make to
But
how
the
people
functions,
interact?
the functions that usually one has, an accountant, office manager, or whatever, will disappear. They already disappeared the other day. There was an accountant came here and said, you don't need a separate space for accountants, because if you, for instance, he was trying to sell me Zero plus the other one, whatever it was, Receipt Bank. And he said, no, you don't even need a desk for them, because come to my screen, I'll put you a screen, and you'll have real-time accounting. You scan, somebody will scan your receipts, whatever, and you don't need any. Why do you need that?
Well,
But
the other thing goes
imagine
along
something
that.
like this into a workplace.
Yes, and I think the other thing which is really making a difference is that we become familiar with the idea of a lot of things being automated, robotics within factories.
Yes.
The automation of many of the process functions in a white collar setting is really quite challenging, and it should be liberating. But on the other hand, people are quite defensive. Where my job's going. But if we can liberate people to work in the front line rather than all the back office functions, then,
Correct.
Yeah.
So this code of practice, would it, you think, enhance or what? What do you think will
The
do?
main benefits of
What would be the benefits of this? If, say, CPTM or Swaziland Bureau of Standards or National Council for Science Technology in Seychelles, or
I
the
think
Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Sefue, yourself, civil service now. Let's get into smart
work. A whole
work.
range of benefits. I think for people to work more productively and more collaboratively, people have more choice, and I think that has quite a big impact on inclusion and diversity, about how you include various people in the workplace who are either marginalised by geographical mobility challenges, because it's too far away from where the work is, or by disability, or by caring responsibilities, and particularly getting women into senior management in a more, because there's this
That's
catch-up
another.
point
And
at
probably
a
the
certain
young
level.
ones could be better integrated.
Yes, indeed.
The young ones, because that's one of the problems that we don't have. We're trying this 29th of February coming, so these smart 29ers, I don't know exactly what to do with them, but
Yes.
they are not accepted into a workplace because a senior, age or otherwise, stay somewhere.
Yeah.
The young ones could just have used laptop in the kitchen.
At the other end of the age scale as well, there's a growing trend towards people wanting phased retirement. I mean, that does bring about
It's also
lots of
about
challenges. How do you
yes.
retain their skills in the organisation? People don't necessarily want to work on a full-time basis, working beyond retirement, but not necessarily doing the long commute every day. It's so there are ways of integrating other kinds of diversity and inclusion, quite practical policies about staffing, and combining that with these flexible, smart ways of working to make a real difference. But I would say that what really persuades organisations is cutting costs, that they can do more, be more productive, be more innovative, have a happier workforce at less cost.
But that brings in Jerry, Professor Jerry Roberts, because the cutting cost, it's equal with numbers, figures. But in fact, Jerry and I and his colleagues, we were always very keen to actually emphasize that the quality rather than the quantitative aspect of something like this also.
Well, that's really, I mean,
But if you're a bottom line, you could say, I saved so much, but in fact what you're really doing, you're enhancing so much more
I think
the quality of the interactions.
Yeah, I think that can be seen in a different way. I can see no value in investing in waste.
Right.
And so if you've got empty desks, empty offices, if you've got people who are travelling unnecessarily a lot of the time, if you've got piles of paper and you're paying, the average office cost calculations per workplace in the UK is about £6,500 per workplace if you do it by the net internal area of the building. Having those empty sort of 50-60% of the time, as they often are.
But actually,
there's no value in that.
No, there is no value. No, there is no value. Figures, numbers. but there is probably a qualitative measure which would be relevant in this
Yes,
when
and-
you apply
well,
the smart working,
Absolutely, and if you
much more than the fact that there are 3 desks. Not.
But what you do is you're trying to enable people to work in the spaces that are most appropriate for the particular activities that
Yeah.
they're doing. And so you don't just say, okay, we'll chop out 30% of the desks and squash people into the remaining area. It's about how you use the savings that you're making, and maybe by closing a building somewhere, and enabling people to work wherever they want to, and creating lots of different environments within the workplace, and investing a bit more in creating a space that people really want to come to. And,
Yeah, I think I think both.
That's our experience in BSI when we're implementing this, and we're
Yeah.
not changing the square meters that BSI occupies, but we are reducing the number of desks, and we're replacing that space that was previously taken up by desks that weren't being used to have a whole variety of other work settings, which I think is making people think differently about their work.
Yeah, that's it. It's a thinking different about the work, which is probably the main objective.
Absolutely.
That's this smart approach, which of flexibility at all levels, which even Jerry and myself were preoccupied in science organisation. Yeah,
But I think it's if you're something like the British government and you've got this massive public debt and people paying tax money to support it, to be able to reduce the estate which they have and to say, well, okay, we've got all these different departments, they've all got their own setup. Why don't we just get people sharing a bit? Why don't they share with local government? Why don't they share with the NHS? And that is starting to happen, and it's just making people think a bit differently. And this sharing aspect is also making quite a bit of
this
difference.
is this smart partnership because we are sharing, but it doesn't come about because there is a money problem, X pounds or dollars. It's come about from different, and then it brings in the fact that you can share a space.
It depends where you're
So
starting from.
there's
yeah.
a bit of a behavioral sciences there, like the nudging and everything else, that probably you've been looking into, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And
Yeah.
I think that for organisations starting out, or trying to bring together projects, it's a different type of story. To say a company that's been around for a long time and they're wondering why they're doing. Well, why we've got an office here, an office here, an office here. We've acquired all these other organisations along the way. We're very successful, but is this the best way to organise ourselves? And so then they start to think, well, let's try and get one real quality space where people can come and collaborate, and then enable people to work in lots of different ways and different spaces, and be more adaptable to the changing market.
I will tell you one group of, I don't know if there are event organizers who are going to listen to us, but one of the bête noire of our group in all these are event organizers, because they have a particular format which they have to follow so that they can tailor, irrespective of what kind of event they may be involved to organize. You can't tailor themselves to it. So I don't know if some of these smart working code of practices could be followed by the event organizers, meaning that they have to be quite flexible and adapted for what they are doing. But now, once this pass has been approved and launched, and there were colleagues, there were a number of other colleagues in the working group,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just.
And how long did it take place? No, I mean, probably Andy just led the whole.
But it wasn't just UK government. There were some big companies, I think, involved in the development, wasn't there? Like Microsoft.
Is that so?
And
They-
Vodafone,
Is that so?
And also charities like Working Families that are very much interested in how the interface between family and work.
Of course.
And then it went out to a public consultation as well. So there's a steering group involving some of these.
There were a number of phases to come up with
in
this.
the public consultation, and then
So how was the public consultation? How did that take place? Online or? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, it follows BSI standard practice is to put them all online. So we keep it open for, I think, 4 weeks for a PAS. I might be wrong, 6 weeks. And this one was one of the ones that got the most number of comments, I believe.
Right.
And the idea is that we're going very broad there into all industries, all stakeholders to comment.
I'll
But the key is
give you a potential client for that.
You have one already?
After.
Okay.
Yeah. But now that there is,
But now it's out there.
how if I want to adopt it, what do I do as an organisation? It
Well,
depends
it's
what
like-
organisation I am, but
You need to get hold of the standard, which you can get from BSI first of all.
okay, and it's not very expensive if I
Compared to the
But-
cost of
of many other
re-engineering your office space
or a desk and whatever.
technological change,
It's quite
it's about
quite,
$100 I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah, it's
Um,
quite
but
peanuts, yeah.
what it does for the organisation is the big benefit.
What do you do with it? You have it, and then
Well, it's written as guidance, and so
Is a
you
guidance.
follow the guidance, and you deliver a lot of those benefits. I think you're talking about that.
Yeah.
So you
to
can
see
implement it
improvement.
yourself,
You can
following
implement it
the-
yourself. You can follow the guidance. You can
Can-
take the piece on technology. You can take the piece on culture change and adopt it in your work setting. And like I say, it's one of those standards that we're following ourselves in changing our own way of working. And already we're starting to see some collaborative opportunities between
Yeah.
teams that probably the work setting had prevented in the past. It was always possible, but if you couldn't see people, if you didn't work closely with them, if you weren't sharing space with them, you wouldn't see collaboration in quite the same
But
way.
when who is assessing that you are now following the
Well-
past 2015? Are there certifications or things of that nature?
Well, this standard isn't written as a
a
certifiable
standard,
document,
no.
so it's not written with the intention of being
But then-
certified and checked by a third party.
But then how-
certainly
It's voluntary, but
it's
in
voluntary.
guidance.
You'll use this because it contains the best advice from the best industry experts,
Uh-huh,
and so
and-
we expect a lot of people will. And certainly, UK government has just taken 200 copies to share with colleagues around the cabinet office.
And the civil
And
service.
the head of civil service was very complimentary about it.
That'll be very much of interest to all the cabinet secretaries and permanent secretaries that we have.
Yeah, the head of the UK Civil Service said that this is the kind of ways of working that UK government
Yeah.
should follow in future. We'd love to see this be adopted more broadly in other countries, perhaps, in isolation.
So how can I say I adopted it? If I started to implement it, or I'm CPTM limited? How? Probably we are already doing it, but I'm sure we can do better, even ourselves.
Well, I'm sure you can. But if you read the document, you'll find things in there that you can implement yourself.
Okay.
You could call in a consultant to help you with it, but you'll probably be able to do it
Yeah,
yourself.
because you need that independent. What do you
I think,
think?
in practical terms, how it's often used is that you find within an organisation that's thinking about change, there are a number of parallel initiatives going along. And for example, someone thinks, well, we need to retain people who are moving away, or we're moving office, we'd like to lose some people, so we'll introduce a bit of home working. And that's a very kind of partial, ad hoc kind of thing. And then have this and think, well, how can we get a more integrated, more business-focused approach to getting the kinds of collaboration that we need, retaining
It's a kind
people.
of point of reference that you are on the right track.
Yes, and also, it has a sort of, it sets out what should be the essence of a kind of vision, and usually you should get the vision and a set of principles about smart working endorsed at a senior level, so that you have a consistent approach to how you do it. And I'm often called into organisations which have started something, and perhaps they've introduced some new technologies and some new working environments, but it's not kind of really happening because the culture change piece isn't there. And one director is interpreting it like this, another one's interpreting it like that, what they're doing, and get that kind of consistency. And
It is a consistency, yeah.
and integrated approach across the disciplines. It's a way of kind of sharing the knowledge between the disciplines as well.
Yeah, there was this, the way we work, smart working in government, that was from the civil service reform.
Yeah, I wrote that. That's,
You wrote that?
I was commissioned
Well,
by the Cabinet Office to write that. And,
So that went about, because I'll be sending it if you agree.
there's a longer version of that which you can get from our website, which has got a whole lot of case studies in. So that one's more illustrative. It's not set up like a standard.
No, of
But
course,
it's,
of course.
so that was kind of like the first wave to try and
Towards the smart
yeah.
working.
And so there's
Yeah, I mean,
momentum there.
I suppose the only thing we could give you, but with a request to feedback to us, is do you think that in this manifesto of ours,
I haven't seen that.
of limitless opportunities through smart partnership, and we may say smart working, smart thinking,
Oh, thank you.
yeah? Do you
Right.
think that may give you some sort to the next pass?
Yeah, indeed.
Because probably we would need it quite a lot. I mean, we have, as we said to at the beginning, our group. We have right from 1995 the a code of ethics
Yes. So,
yeah, which I gave it to you, and the CPTM as such and the smart partnership way is this one. So I just put a sticker there when we So I mean, the smart working not necessarily workplace. It's smart working in a different context. Yeah.
yes, it is.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. In addition to from time to time meeting together or whatever it is.
Yes, it's just
Yeah.
keeping the work going wherever you're doing and getting those new kind of relationships established and becoming innovative.
So what is next, Andy? In your flexibility and agile, what is the difference between flexibility, agility, and all the rest of it?
I think that agility, people use that a little bit to emphasise that organisations need to be adaptable. But it's a bit confusing because there's agile IT, which is a whole other discipline. So I think people do get confused. I try not to use the term too much. I think as a branding for a programme of workplace transformation, business transformation, they're the same thing in all practical terms. Flexible working, because there are flexible working regulations, it's kind of like almost a subset of
It's a subset.
because it tends to promote flexible working by exception. So most people are working, they go there every day and they're 9 to 5, but because they've got caring responsibilities, they want to apply for a different pattern of work. Well, smart working is more about making flexibility as normal, so it's much more easy to integrate these alternative ways of working.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. What is your background? Why have you suddenly become interested and probably leading such a silent transformation?
Well, I've been doing it for about 21 years. It started off writing about flexible working.
But what is your background?
Oh, my background, I actually taught history for 12
history?
Years. Yeah.
Incredible.
But then
what sort of history? Because you just tried.
Well, actually, it was to be more than an imperial history, actually. So I don't know. Sort of
Incredible.
Incredible. But then reached a kind of stage, and also other changes going on in my life. On my own, looking after 3 young children. So I was looking for the kind of work and did a sort of variety of different kinds of work.
Which
in the
integrates
sector, and then started really almost by chance in working for the company that was managing a number of European Commission projects on.
I've seen your
on teleworking, as it was called then. And this is, I mean, the World Wide Web hardly existed back then in 1994, so it was only just getting going, and seeing it as a potential business tool, what it might mean. So always trying to be staying just slightly ahead of the curve and interpreting what that means for organisations.
Yeah, I suppose the universities and as Jerry was saying, we are quite preoccupied in the research and scientific.
I'll tell you something interesting about universities, and that a lot of universities in England are moving towards smart working or agile working, and it's and the academics tend to be very happy that the back office functions are going to this. But you ask a professor to share an office, and then you're in quite a shared work environment.
But you know, Andy, we have this Professor Tom De Gregory, our fellow in the University of Houston. We were talking last night until very late, and he was saying, look, you know, my workplace is quite changed now because my university is requiring me and inducing me to work through the blackboard. And that means all my documents, including my webcasts, including everything else, I make them available on the blackboard. So he will be probably quite interested in this smart working code of practice. What does that mean? Because there is no code of practice in that space. Yeah. So there probably something will emerge.
But I think it's quite interesting.
A pattern will emerge.
Higher education is, in some aspects, ahead of the game with the kind of distance learning and the distance training that goes on. But often it's a bit of an exception to what they normally do.
It is actually.
And so a lot of it is still. I don't know if that's fair to say, because a lot of the actual teaching that goes on is all done electronically. The students are anywhere and they're communicating with their teachers and tutors.
It's a completely different.
Yeah, and then they go into a typical workplace, and it's like going back to the dark ages, isn't it?
I suppose it's this hybridity of conventional and different, which probably requires also to be integrated into this.
So I think overall we're going through big changes, the full impact on the spatial relationships between people and the intellectual relationships between people. That's all in a state of flux, and it's
Is it
quite an
space,
exciting
but a
time, so-
physical manifestation of information usually comes through a physical, is attached to a physical,
Yes.
was attached to a physical thing. And more, the information is detached from a physical, that is a book or a screen or whatever.
Yes.
So what value do you put on that
Yeah.
kind of information which somehow comes looking freely, but it's not?
Yeah.
But what value do you put on that? So
Mm.
I suppose there might be another path
Yeah.
for you. But
Watch this space.
well,
I
what's
think
in space? I think the BSI has, and all the standards institutions in our group, they've got a very very big additional role. I mean, the more you think about it, it looks like I'm promoting Bureau of Standards since about
Please
7
do.
years ago, but the way I look at it is not in a conventional role that you have. And not myself, all our colleagues. I mean, this is another not typical, probably preoccupation of a Bureau of Standards.
That's right, yes. Well, this is
So-
about the way standards bodies are changing. They are moving
Yeah.
out of typical product standards and moving much more into these kind of process, these new ways of working.
When you say meta preoccupation, it's got a lot of meta data
Yeah,
rather
absolutely.
than.
Yeah. So, but this is what we need to do. I think we are. It's ideal for us to use because of the way we work and the things
No,
we
no,
do.
no, of course.
So the BSI will transform the way we work. But I think also in 20 years' time, this will be such the norm. You know that
Yeah.
to delay any longer really would be to deny that opportunity.
I suppose it allows also this type of a smart approach, adaptation to everything that comes in,
Yes.
because otherwise, so it's more or less timeless.
You
this
started
kind
20
of-
years ago. Now everybody's going smart. So
No, I know. Except what we meant by smart partnership was this sudden interaction of information from everywhere, but in a targeted way. So it wasn't anything else, and the information came from individuals were all somehow involved into doing something together. So there was this smartness
Yeah.
and probably networkability, because that could be one thing that you could measure in a smart place, wouldn't it?
how
Yeah.
interconnected everything
Ending
is.
up into a networkability figure. I mean, Jerry won't agree with me, but thank you very much, Andy, and particularly for giving us, to all of us, those who are kind of going to to hear from first hand from yourself about right at the beginning of the launch of this pass in January, this new smart working standard code of practice, not quite a standard, but it's, yeah. And well, thank you very much to David and to British Standard Institute, to Scott and all your colleagues. And thank to Alan, keeps an eye on us that
Yeah, absolutely.
we
Thank
are
you,
on the edge all the time. So thank you very much, and hope you can join us probably in working out a code of practice for
indeed.
smart partnership. Very much needed, very much needed in all sorts of ways.
Right.
Thank you very much.